Great. It's about time, everyone. As we get started here, this is a reminder, and I'll have Jalen touch on it a little bit, so we can accurately track everyone's CEUs going forward. Just make sure you have your first and last name listed, and then also include your school or the organization you're with. Have your district. That's important to have your district in there, and then also indicate, it helps us out if you're certified or not certified currently, so we can go through the notes, because there's a lot of notes we have in the report that we pull off of here, and it just helps sort everything out a little bit easier. So a little housekeeping for everybody. I'll wait a few more minutes before we get everyone. Jalen, is everyone in that needs to be in?
Hey, Josh, do you want this in the chat or in like people's names?
In their name, please. Everyone put that in their name.
I see Tim. I see Nate. Jeff, are you on the call yet? I don't see Jeff.
I don't see Jeff yet.
Let me text him real quick.
Wait a few more minutes here. While we're waiting, I'll go ahead and get my little thing out of the way. For those of you that are able to see and be a part of last week with football student manager appreciation week that we did at Uncommon Sports Group, and loved all the support from AMA members, and it's our first year doing it, so just appreciate everyone sharing. And we end up providing, I think, meals for 10 groups of student managers at schools, and all referral based. So those of you that reached out and let us know, that it was great. Big thing that helps with that is any donations that you guys have, t-shirts, shorts, old gear, that helps us out immensely with those types of things. So if you have anything, please reach out, let me know. It always helps out, and obviously goes to a good cause, helping out some groups of student managers. And also a big thing, if you guys have student managers right now, we're in the last month of our scholarship deadline. So we have a scholarship. That scholarship can be used for tuition, books, AMA certification, has a lot of different uses for that. We don't really restrict what it's being used for. So please check out uncommonsg.org, and then our scholarship info and application is on there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, as a reminder, just for those of you hopping on late here, please make sure first and last name, school organization, district, and certified, not certified are listed in your name. That way when we run a report, we can see everyone on there. I see a lot of you are making that change. It looks good. Helps us out a lot on the back end, especially Robin goes through all of these. It's a huge help for her. So also as a reminder, our next session will be on the 7th of December. We're going to be going over a neat session on track and field. Everyone knows those unique things that go on with track and field, long seasons, and balancing all the different types of shoes and meeting your athletes' needs, especially since a lot of them are not available in your building. So we'll go through that session, and this is the rest of the schedule, including a session preparing for convention on the 3rd of June, which will be exciting to go through that and have everyone help out with that. Jalen, do you want to talk about CEU stuff?
Yeah, I can talk real quick. I know a lot of people have been having questions about CEUs and making sure that you're going to get credit for it. I see Mark Peeler on the call. I want to thank Mark and Robin over helping out with the CEU stuff over the past few weeks, getting that all organized. Robin's still finalizing some things. Our understanding as of right now is that you can get up to a total of 1 complete CEU for attending these workshops with 0.1 CEU for each workshop you attend. Now, I know we have more than 10 workshops scheduled. So if you attend all 15 workshops, you're going to get maxed out at 1 total CEU. But the understanding right now is that you would get 0.1 CEU per workshop. If there's any questions regarding would you get credit for the ones that have already taken place, my understanding after talking to Robin is yes. I am in the process of getting her everybody's information that has been on the previous calls. And that's why Josh asked that you would please put that information in there today. That makes it easier for Robin and Mark and those guys to kind of decipher. With that being said, I think Jeff's on the call now. So we'll jump in. Jeff, Nate, and Tim, if you would please introduce yourselves. I'm going to introduce the panel for today on the topic of postseason football. Josh will be kind of asking the questions. I will be on the panel. I'm going to try to let those guys. They got a lot more experience than I do when it comes to working postseason football. So I'll let them do most of the talking. But Jeff, Tim, and Nate, if you would please go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of give a brief synopsis of your experience with working postseason football games.
Jeff, if you want to go ahead and go first.
Jeff just texted me and said he's having some audio issues, so he's getting that set up. So Tim, why don't you go first, and then we'll go to Nate and then Jeff.
Sure, and thanks for having me on. And first, I apologize. I have a cold, and so I'm a little nasally. So if you can't understand me, let me know. Image Apparel Solutions, we've been working with the different equipment rooms across the country. This is our 28th year. We've done everything from championship decorations for different sports. The count for bowl games is well over 100 different schools that we've been able to work with and participate with. And I'm thrilled to be on and hopefully can add some answers to the questions.
Great. Nate, can you share a little bit of background?
Yeah, my name is Nate Barrow. I work at NDSU. I've been here for 13 football seasons. In that time, we've been in the playoffs pretty much every season since I've been here. We've probably hosted 30 home playoff games. We've had 3 road playoff games, and I've been to 9 national championship games with the program in that time. I've been a student manager during that time, assistant during that time. I've been the director of equipment since 2016, and then I've also been the director of football operations since 2019, all at North Dakota State.
Great. And Jeff, are you on? I'll pop back in.
Yeah, how's it going, man? Sorry, I was having some audio trouble.
No worries. You do a little introduction for us.
Yeah, how's it going? My name is Jeff McGrew. I'm the director of football equipment here at University of Florida. I've been here my entire career. Started in 2002 as a student manager. Graduated, got hired on as an assistant, and took over the head job in 2013. So this is my 21st season with the Florida Gators. I was fortunate to be a part of 2 national championship teams, 2 SEC championship teams, a number of different bowl games that we've been able to go to, and have some different experiences with that, and look to hopefully be able to share some information or just some insights from how we've done things.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Just as a real quick housekeeping piece, if you guys come up with questions or want to have questions, please drop them in the chat. So we've got about 3 or 4 different main topics we'll go through, and then, would love to go through and make sure we have time to answer anybody's questions. And there is no such thing as a bad question. If it's already been asked, don't worry about it. I'll skip over it. I'll filter those out. So to get started, one of the big ones was, how far out are you guys planning for these championships, and all the different levels that we've got covered in here? So I'll start with you, Nate, and then we'll go Jeff, and then Tim, if you could chime in, and then Jalen, if you have anything to add after that, that'd be great. So how far out are we talking planning for a lot of these bowl games, championships, those types of things?
So with us, it's a little different having a 20-team playoff. Usually once we get a pretty good idea of middle of October to late October of how we're doing and how the rest of the country is doing, kind of knowing where we're sitting, I'll kind of start prepping out, knowing that there's 4 rounds of playoff games at the FCS level that we'd have to go through. I don't do really any gear besides the normal travel gear for those if we go on the road, other than I do start ordering additional gloves and cleats and stuff, just because if you're gonna have 4 extra games, it's a lot of extra use on your equipment. But usually by mid to late November, I'll start ordering the travel suits. Luckily for us, we've been in 9 championships in the past 11 years, so I just kind of expect to go. So I get those things ordered right away. And our semifinal game is usually right before Christmas. And then we got about 3 weeks until the championship game for me to get the embroidery logos put on there, whatever we're going to do, and then get those ready to go.
Great, Nate, thanks. Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so kind of adding on to him, what I've kind of been doing the past few years is, so normally with Nike, obviously once you win your 6th game and become bowl eligible, they usually kind of send you a little package of things that we can order, usually some different items. In case of last year with our team, we actually didn't become bowl eligible until the last game of the season. So by the time for us, we got to that point and there just wasn't very much left. Most of the other teams had wiped that stuff out. So what I started doing years ago, just because of that particular thing, when I placed my orders for next year, I was just doing it for next football season, I order usually a couple of those key items that, I know we're always going to need for a bowl game, whether it's a travel warm up, maybe a couple of different t-shirts, maybe a hoodie, this and that. I usually get it non-branded with any of our team logos. Usually sometimes you can return that stuff if you happen to not go to a bowl game, as long as it's not branded with team logos. So a lot of times I'll do that. I'll go ahead and place an order, a year in advance, and then hopefully we'll go to a bowl game. Most of the time we do. And then, once you do get that 6th bowl, then you can kind of really start zoning in on what your options look like. But really, it's kind of hard to really make a lot of progress if you're branding things specific to the bowl game. You obviously got to wait until you know what bowl game that you're playing in. But we usually try to make sure those key items that you're going to have. For our team, we usually have every function that you go to for that week. Our coach wants them to kind of look the same, and everybody's kind of in a proper attire. So it's just kind of trying to coordinate out those different items, but be far enough out in advance where you have it and you're not scrambling around at the last minute trying to figure that out.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. And Tim, you see, I'm sure you see on both ends of the spectrum, the well-prepared and the last minute type stuff come in. Can you share some best practices and some things that you've seen on your side?
Yeah, so we on the vendor side, we treat it a little different. And basically, for us right now, I did the count this morning. We have 57 universities we work with that have football programs that would become bowl eligible, possibly. We create a spreadsheet in July of all of our programs, and then we track the wins and losses as we go along. And we do one other thing is we break out the spreadsheet by the brands, Adidas, Nike, Under Armour, and now New Balance. And we do this for a reason that if and I think it was that Jeff talked about product being short in the playoff portals when you become bowl eligible with the 6 wins. So we kind of anticipate that and look for merchandise that we might have to order for the schools to fill in some of their gear for their practice bowl gear or something like that. We start contacting our schools. We look at the schedules and we kind of have a pretty good idea after like 4 wins where people are going to fall into the eligibility. And then we start contacting them. And the main reason is that if they want something unique, not a bowl logo, but a University of Michigan logo that they want an Ultra Tech or silicone patches or something unique embellishment for the bowl merchandise or the players or coaches gear or the alumni or the staff, we need to get that ordered and produced ahead of time. And we probably need to do that 4 weeks ahead. So right now we're already talking to most of our bowl eligible or near bowl eligible teams for any kind of unique merchandise. We always end up having a pretty good idea of what bowl a team's going to go to the week before a selection Sunday. And we'll have it down to 2, maybe 3 bowl games. We'll prepare for all of those bowls. And what we mean is we usually use Performance Flex for the bowl logos that are going on warm-ups or bags, because sometimes we'll only have 5 or 6 days as a vendor to prepare stuff for a quick turn bowl. And then, we reach out to everybody. Once the bowls selection Sunday comes, we're decorating Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning. We've begun putting stuff together. The first thing we do is we concentrate on the jerseys and getting the bowl patches on. And then we do everything in order to not just when the bowl is, but how long it's going to take the team to get to that bowl game. The Bahamas Bowl or the Hawaii Bowl is a little more challenging logistically, you guys know, than something in the Midwest. And, from that point on, we have a capacity of maybe 10 to 11 full-blown bowl teams that we want to do. And then we start kind of tapping out our capacity at that point. But we do leave some open room always for, as you guys talked about, the last minute add-ons or just being flexible with changes to teams' plans, especially in the last couple of years with COVID. We had to be very flexible in replacement teams and stuff like that for bowls. That's basically the approach.
Thanks, Tim. Jalen, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I kind of have a question. I kind of want to kind of add to it based on some experience that I've had, and I'm curious to how Nate and Jeff would have handled this, and also get Tim's opinion on it from the vendor side. So in 2016, I was a graduate assistant at Mississippi State University, and we were not very good. We were going into the last game of the season with a 4-7 record with no expectation of playing in a bowl game. Won that last game, we're 5-7, and there weren't enough bowl eligible teams, and we got in to the St. Petersburg Bowl based on our APR. Well, Jeff, like you talked about in the past, you're looking when you get to maybe win 4 or 5, you're starting to look at bowl stuff. Well, halfway through the season, we pretty confident we weren't going to a bowl. We didn't look for that stuff. And then we get in that situation and we're scrambling, as Tim talked about, having to be a little more flexible on the vendor side. Our vendors were very flexible with us, very helpful. But I guess my question for you guys, I think, Jeff, you kind of hit on it, that you've been kind of padding your orders, knowing what, specific items you're going to need, padding that. I was curious, y'all's professional opinion on a situation like that, how you would have handled that. And then Tim, also in a situation like that, what could you have done for us that late of notice, like literally not knowing we had nothing prepared, we had nothing ordered. What could you have done for us in a situation like that? Just curious to hear y'all's opinions and thought process.
Yeah, kind of like I said, we kind of bail ourselves out just because I do place that order every year. You know, for the most part, I think in the 21 years I've been here, we've lucked out. I think twice we haven't gone to a bowl game. So for the most part, we always use that. Now, if we don't go to a bowl game, then yeah, I got to figure out what we're doing with that stuff. Being that it's non-branded, usually I can return it or we can find another use for it. But I try to kind of always prepare us just so I don't get stuck in that situation where you're scrambling around at the last minute. But if you do get in that situation, I think most vendors, you know, if you're a Nike school, Nike will, you know, if usually if you have a good partnership with them, I would think they would go out of their way to try to help you out and get you stuff. But I think there's plenty enough different vendors out there to branch out to different people, whether it's, you know, a WSI or something like that, that can get you enough different items to be able to help you out during that time. So, I mean, you might be scrambling around trying to figure it out, but like I said, I mean, that's what I would do. And then, you know, just work on it just to make it, you know, clear with Nike. Hey, look, we don't have stuff. You guys can't get us anything. We're going to have to get this other product. It's not logoed or it doesn't have Under Armour or whatever, this and that. But this is what we got to do for our team. Usually they're pretty understanding as long as you're up front with them and kind of communicate that. But like I said, I mean, if you have the ability to within your budget to kind of go ahead and plan for that stuff, I think it's always better to have it and have it ready. And then, okay, you don't go to a bowl game. All right, what can we do with this now? Rather than, you know, get caught with your pants down or whatever you want to call it, and be scrambling around trying to figure it out at the last minute.
That's good advice. And Nate, I'm curious on the, you know, on the FCS level, and then also maybe Division II, Division III when you're playing in playoffs. Well, like, what would your advice be on a situation like that? Maybe if you're an equipment manager at a school that historically has not made the playoffs, and you know, the Division II level, and you're having a really spectacular season, and it looks like you're going to make the playoffs, and you haven't budgeted for it, you haven't planned for it, but you're going to get in, and the expectation from your staff is we're going to have all this stuff to go for the playoffs. So how would you prepare for that, or any advice on how to assess a situation like that?
Yeah, what I've done in the past is like for football, we are direct with Nike and I get access to the bowl package, but sometimes by selection Sunday, it's late in the year and all that stuff's kind of gone. Our other sports do Nike, but they go through BSN. So I've reached out to the BSN rep and we've just found like something that's in stock that's Nike. We've got like a basketball travel warm up or like some sort of basketball warm up. And we just order whatever in stock where we know we can get all the quantities right away. And then try to find a legend shirt or something that's just always kind of in stock from Nike and just order that through BSN. I've also, some years, like we got some big retailers in town and the bookstore. And if they got like a specific shirt they're going to be getting and selling at that retailer in the bookstore with some sort of phrase or logo on it of the championship, I'll kind of be like, hey, can you get me 110 of these for our players to wear? And then when people see pictures or media shots of the players going to the championship game, they'll see that same shirt that you're selling in the store. And we've been able to work a pretty good partnership with some of those retailers to get some shirts that way. They just order a bunch extra and give them to the team so that I got shirts sometimes when the full stuff is out through Nike. So especially at the FCS, D2, D3 level, you probably have some sort of BSN Rep 1 sports contract that you're working with where they can find something in line, whether it's Nike, Under Armour, Adidas. The basketball is always where I look just that time of year, kind of what they're selling and what they have in stock to get for the guys. And then just lean on the bookstore, any retailers, anyone that's going to be doing some sort of specialty shirt to try and promote their stuff that they're going to sell and try and work out some deal with them.
So Jalen, on the vendor side, there's kind of two challenges to this, because this happened a lot last year, where if you become bowl eligible the last week, you're probably gonna be in a pretty quick bowl game as far as the schedule goes. You're not playing New Year's Day. And as you guys know, there's bowl games that are the Wednesday and Thursday after Selection Sunday. Those bowl games are just impossible to do stuff for if you're selected late. But we had this situation to a couple of schools last year. Middle Tennessee made it late. And that Sunday night, you know, we got a call from Larry Maples, and Nike didn't have any royal blue merchandise for their practice gear. And so we went and sourced all the product was Badger and A4. And because one, we have to look at, can we get it in a day or two? We're kind of at an advantage because we do all the embellishment in house, but you know, you've got 6-7 days to turn it around. You can't even, you know, last year, as most of you know, Nike wasn't going to ship blank goods in time anyways, probably for the bowl game to us, no matter where they came from. So we prepare ahead of time, looking at the colors of the schools, and we assume that the brands, if you're going to be eligible the last day on the last week of the season, that there's not going to be a lot left in the playoff portal. The other situation we do have is that if a Power 5 team or somebody thinks that they might become bowl eligible, but they don't know and they're not quite sure, they do order merchandise ahead of time, have a drop shipped to us. A lot of times that merchandise just becomes part of the spring season, the spring practice gear, and they use it for that, and kind of, you know, drop it in to the use then. Those are the two big situations for us. But I would say last year with the supply chain, we probably put 5 or 6 of our teams into non-branded merchandise. And I know specifically that we dropped a branded logo onto a coach's shirt because it wasn't available and he was going to be seen on the sidelines. And we kind of cleared it with the brand ahead of time. But last year was probably the biggest challenge as far as finding good product in the portal or just in the general inventory to begin with. So.
Thanks, Tim. Next kind of question I want to go through is, and Jeff kind of alluded to this a little bit, is the logistics part of it. You know, besides apparel, there's a lot of planning that goes involved with where and when and how. So if we could start, Nate, and we'll go Jeff, and then if you could chime in a little bit, Jalen, it'd be great. But what process do you have in planning the logistics as far as your travel, you know, practice sites, laundry facilities, all that kind of stuff? What kind of process do you have? And I guess when do you get to start that part of it, and explain it in detail, if you could, for everyone how that works. So.
I guess from my standpoint, at the FCS level, it's kind of twofold. So like if you're traveling during the playoffs on the road, we were at Sam Houston State a few years ago. I mean, you have kind of your normal travel week of just, hey, we're going to practice at home Monday through Thursday, head down. Kind of just depends on if they have you slide for a Friday, Saturday game for those, but it's going to be a pretty typical normal travel for what you do throughout the season. We're not going to do anything down there. As far as the championship game goes, there's about 3 weeks in between the semifinals and the championship game. Luckily, if you make the championship, it's not like a bowl. You know where you're going. You know when the game is. We're only there for 3 days beforehand, and we only have 1 practice and a walkthrough down there. So I've always worked with North Texas. We've had a relationship with them. At the FCS level, you do have to find your own laundry. They don't really provide it for you. So I've just always worked with North Texas on doing our laundry after our practice, our 1 practice down there, and getting it back. As far as the other logistics, it's really working with the head coach, the DFO, on when can the semi leave, because it's a long truck drive down there. So he's got to leave, and we're still going to have one practice at home. So kind of working with the coaches on what are you actually going to need down in Texas to practice? What do you want left at home for that one practice? Trying to figure all that out. And then I kind of go through my normal travel checklist for the game, get all that stuff on the front of the truck because that's going to be the last stuff we need. Then I put all the practice equipment we're going to need on because that'll come off first. And then basically at the back, we'll put everything on for the hotel because the truck will stop at the hotel, unload everything there, get that stuff set up, and then the truck will go to the stadium, stay at the stadium. So then we'll go unload the practice stuff. After practice is done, we'll unload the game stuff, get all the practice stuff put back on the truck. We set up the locker room for like all 110 players for practice. And then after that practice is done, we kind of take the non-dress guys. We only dress 70 for the championship game. So all the non-dress guys, their stuff gets packed all back up onto the truck. Then we reset the locker room for the game on Friday night before the championship game Saturday.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Jeff, can you share a little bit about your logistics and the fun of turning around, especially if you've got 2 bowl games?
Yeah. So I guess I would say starting out, the one thing that I root for every single year is that we play in a bowl game that's in a dome. I think that is huge. And like when you play in a dome, 9 times out of 10, you're going to practice in that dome. And that's where your practice stuff is set up. And it kind of obviously just alleviates having to like be at a practice site for a few days, pack up, transfer to the stadium or whatever. So, you know, you get lucky in playing, you know, whether it's Sugar Bowl or the Peach Bowl or the Mercedes-Benz, you know, you're basically setting up your locker room the way it's going to be for game day. And then that kind of cuts out a lot of steps as well. Playing inside a dome, you're not able to bring a bunch of sleds and things like that. So I always root to be able to play in a dome pretty much every year. But obviously things doesn't always work out like that. Kind of like Nate was saying, we pack our truck depending on how close the bowl game is to where we are located. Like there's a bunch of bowl games here in the state of Florida and around this area. So if we're playing in one of those games that's a little bit closer, a lot of times we'll rent a box truck in addition to all of our normal stuff that we take. And usually we kind of make that like a practice equipment type stuff. So we'll still go off of our normal road game, equipment check off packing list, which is pretty extensive. Make sure we have all that stuff. And then we kind of get into practice mode and try to figure out what does the practice week look like? You know, since COVID hit, a lot of these bowl games, the length of them is not like the full week that it used to be back in the day. So, you know, we played in the bowl game last year. We were there for 3 days, basically like we kind of got there on what would have been like a Thursday evening dinner, Friday walk through the game, and then you're done. Those types of trips are a lot easier. It kind of seems like a lot of these bowl games are trending more like that. And, you know, for us, we're fortunate we're able to knock out all of our heavy practice equipment days here in Gainesville. So we didn't have to bring as much stuff down to the bowl site. So, but yeah, I mean, it's really, you know, talking with your coaches, figuring out like, hey, what can we do without, you know? Do we really need this 3-man sled down there? Can you get through 1 week, the last week of the season, without having to have it? And, and really kind of just expressing that importance of, look, we don't have the space. Maybe the site that we're going down and where we're practicing at, maybe that school or whoever, they have something we can use. And we've done that sometimes, rent some equipment from, if you're practicing at a college or a high school and they have some equipment available, like what can you use from them, even if you need to pay for it? I would rather pay, if you have the ability within your budget, I'd rather pay and use their equipment instead of having to, transport all of our stuff down there. So just a lot of different things. And, just kind of seconding, just being organized on the way you're packing the truck. So there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, there's some things that need to be at the hotel, some things that's got to be at the practice site, some things that are just game day. So really kind of diving in to kind of talking about each day, what needs to be done at each day, when are you moving from practice site to the game facility, what can you use for both practice and game. Like, you know, we have like a sideline trunk and a window trunk that has like all of our wristbands and accessories and stuff. Do you need one separate for just practice, or can you get by with just the same thing? So we do a lot of that. Talking in terms of, you know, the apparel, like for us, so like when we played in like these bigger bowl games and they had these different functions every day that you got to go to, you know, our coaches have always wanted us to, hey, what is everybody wearing for this event? And then tomorrow they're wearing a different thing for this event and everybody looks the same. We kind of, you know, just try to make as least amount of stuff that we have to bring back, pack that stuff in boxes rather than hampers. So when you pull it out of the box, you issue it out, you basically break the boxes down. That's one less thing you have to bring back with you. So any little things like that you can think of, be able to minimize what you're bringing back. We always try to come back with less than what we take. So a lot of little things like that. And then, you know, basically, you know, I've been to enough of these bowl games here in the state of Florida that we kind of have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be like for each week. So just knowing that, and that makes it a lot easier for how to pack the truck and just the logistics of not having to like pack and unpack and then pack again and unpack, digging for certain items. So just kind of really diving into it and kind of seeing exactly what you need for practice, what you need at the hotel, what you need at the stadium, and trying to be strategic on how you're putting those things on the truck.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Jaylee, you want to add anything there?
Yeah, kind of a second question for Jeff right there, based on what he just said, about hoping that your bowl game's indoor because it makes the practice site a little more easier. Kind of threefold question here, Jeff. Let's say you have a bowl game that's outdoors. I've been to the Orange Bowl and I've been to the Gator Bowl in Florida, and you know, I remember having very extensive conversations about whether or not to pack cold gear for those trips, and we did pack it. And when we got to the game day of the Gator Bowl, it dropped down and was in the 30s overnight. And I think the high at the game day was 42. So I was glad we did take it. But when you're looking at those warmer weather bowl games, you have conversations about taking cold gear. And then also when you're talking about the logistics of packing the truck, I know from my experience, you know, in these bowl games, you're taking a lot more people than you normally would be taking. You're taking coaches' wives and kids. You're taking administrators that normally wouldn't be on the regular trip. Their families are going. And from my experience, we had a lot of extra luggage, and it was the main reason we took a second box truck to load that stuff on. Is that something else you factor in your logistic planning of, you know, we have all these extra bags to account for?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're always kind of looking at what potential weather issues might pop up. Like we're going to always, unless we're playing in a dome, we're always going to bring rain gear regardless, you know? And like we take that for every road trip, even if it says 0% chance of rain. You know, meteorologists are 20% right most of the time, so you never know. So even with like cold weather stuff, like once it starts getting towards the second half of the season, we always have a couple of cold weather options. And then, you know, if there's a chance that it could be down in the 40s or whatever, yeah, we definitely always bring stuff. It's better to have it and not use it rather than not have it and then be getting chirped at by everybody. So if you got the space, figure out a way to make sure you have it and that you're not catching heat from everybody on the team, staff, coaches, this and that. As far as, yeah, additional people. So I think that's just conversations that you have to have with your administration. And, you know, basically we probably have one of the larger staffs in the country here with all the people that we've hired. And yeah, traditionally for a bowl game, they let most of our families, pretty much everybody's family, travel with us. So if that becomes a thing where, you know, people are asking, you know, you could be proactive in terms of going through your administration saying, hey, this is going to be an issue and I want to be prepared. We're going to need a truck if everybody is going to be expecting us to throw stuff on there, strollers, this, that, the other. And we've had that a few times. It hasn't really been terrible with us in the sense of having to pack a ton of stuff, but we definitely get a little bit every year. You get somebody that wants to bring golf gloves or this and that. So, I guess the biggest thing is just to be proactive and just keep your administrators in loop. And if it gets to a point where it's like you need another box truck, or put it on them to make the hard decision to tell somebody, no, you can't put that on the equipment truck. This is for the team and the players and this and that, because people will take advantage of that. And, you don't want football equipment for your team to not be able to fit on the truck because everybody has luggage and strollers and stuff.
Perfect. Anybody have any questions for the panel? You can message them to me, or you can try to work out where you can just unmute yourself here. Second, we got a smaller group here, so if you have questions or follow-up questions, we'd love to get those answered.
I would like to hear Jeff and Nate's opinion, your personal opinion of what are some of the biggest barriers or obstacles you guys have come across in your career when it comes to planning for these playoff games, conference championship games, bowl games. What would you say are some of the biggest obstacles and barriers you faced?
Well, so I have, or you want to go ahead, Nate?
Yeah, I can just jump in quick. I would say for us, the game's always going to be outside. It's a natural grass soccer field that we play on. They have soccer fields out there, practice fields you can go practice on right next to the stadium. But if there is rain, they usually send us over to the high school indoor. The high school indoor has been about 30 yards long. It might be 53 yards wide. So sometimes your practice situations get to be off-site. You get in a little funky setting. We had to have the defense go in for a 45-minute practice, and then the offense come in for a 45-minute practice, just because that's the space you got, and trying to get helmets and shoulder pads and gear over there for that becomes an issue. I'd say the biggest thing when it comes to Division III, Division II FCS, the whole other layer is you're dealing with the NCAA, not a bowl, and the NCAA's got how they're going to run it and what your schedule is going to be and what their rules and their regulations are and how you're going to go through all that. And it kind of is what it is, and you just kind of got to work with them on some of the logistics stuff. I'd say the other hard part for us always just becomes travel. The NCAA provides one plane for us. Usually we take a second plane that the school's paying for, but it's trying to figure out which plane's getting in first, like which plane am I going on? Which plane am I putting the student managers on? Are we all together? Where are all the families at? Just for when we get down there so we can get to the stadium as soon as possible to get stuff unloaded and set up. Like, can I just send the assistant and the managers so they can get to the stadium right away and I'm going to the hotel by myself? We just don't have as big a staff as probably some of the FBS schools. So that logistically gets to be kind of big for us. The other hard part for us just becomes, you're playing the playoffs, you're going to play 3 weeks of games, and then you never know if you're actually going to go do the championship game, which is much more like a bowl setting. So once you win that game, it's basically the next day you got to start doing all your prep work right away and figure out all that stuff kind of in a short time span. Luckily for us at NDSU, we've been fortunate to go enough times that we kind of have a good routine in place that we just kind of build on that routine each year. But it's always those first 3-4 days after we win the semifinal game get to be kind of hectic of what's our practice schedule like at home? When do we actually get down there? What's our schedule like when we're down there? Do we practice in the morning, the afternoon? How does it all set up? So I'd say those are some of our biggest obstacles we deal with.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same kind of obstacles at our level as well. Fortunately for us, our conference championship, like if you're in that, it pretty much operates like a normal road game. It's always gonna be played in Atlanta and it's in a dome, so it's kind of a fairly easy trip in terms of that game. There's not a whole lot going on, but obviously once you get into the different bowl games, or if you get into the playoffs. So we have not been a part of the playoffs since it started. When we were in the national championship, it was still the BCS. So I haven't been through that logistic yet, but I know talking to, the guys at Alabama and Georgia, just knowing, there is some hiccups with how that system goes based off of where your round one game is. And if you make it to the championship, there could be a lot of traveling from one end of the country to the next. So I've heard the way Georgia's kind of done it, Bama, they've kind of had to definitely plan for, maybe your truck is not coming back to wherever Tuscaloosa and it's going across the country, having to send somebody out there possibly to kind of reorganize, clean uniforms, this and that. So it definitely kind of puts some obstacles on you based off of, if you do advance, kind of like what Nate was saying, you don't know if you're going to make it to that next game, and you got to flip it around and kind of reset and start all over again. So I have not been a part of that yet, so I can't really give a whole lot of insight on how that operates at our level, but doesn't sound great, but it's a great problem to have, I guess.
Awesome. Anything else, Jalen?
If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask, but I was scrolling through here and looking at who all's on here. I see several guys on the call that I know have a plethora of playoff or bowl game and playoff experience. Al, Victor, Augie, if you guys got anything you want to share, tidbits, information, anything that you could add to what Jeff and Nate have discussed today, would love to hear your guys' professional opinions as well. Don't feel pressure to, but I just see you're here, and if you're willing to share your tidbits of wisdom, we'd appreciate it.
I have a question if nobody is ready to share.
Perfect. Fire away.
So for people at the FCS D2 NAIA level, with the expanded playoffs, and a smaller budget, how do you guys usually, take care of practices? Say you have at least one padded practice before your playoff game in the other state, and you don't have a semi truck that comes with you to bring your field equipment or not, or whatnot. How does anyone have any experience with how they handled that, like local schools or the school you're playing against or whatnot?
It's a really good question. And if anybody on the call that has any experience with that would like to chime in, please feel free to. It's a great question. And just so I understand the question in its entirety, you're asking that you practice at home and you're going to the playoff game the next day and you don't have access to a truck. How do you handle that logistically? Is that correct?
Yes, any practice, say the day before or 2 days before the game or whatnot, depending on, this is my first year as a head and at the D2 level, so I've never dealt with, not having, I was at an FBS school before and we got to take our entire practice with us everywhere we went. But any smaller schools have any issues with that, or is it usually the day before you show up and it's just a walkthrough type of thing?
I'd say, I guess, from my perspective at North Dakota State, like when we've gone on the road for playoff games, we've always just kind of done our normal practices at home and then just flown out there and just done a walkthrough or something the day before a game. We've never changed up from our typical travel schedule. I know some teams coming down to the championship that don't have a semi or something like that, they have rented, like, if you can get a U-Haul or a Penske truck or anything like that, I've seen teams use those. Even teams that have come up here for playoff games, just trying to set something up. If you can find it in the budget to just rent some sort of truck like that to help with any of that equipment, you know, they brought those in over the years.
That helps a lot. Thank you. Appreciate you, Nate.
Any other questions? Anybody else had Diana ask?
Josh, it's not really a question. I don't want to put her on the spot, so she can tell me to be quiet. But I see that Madam President Melly Resendez is on the call, and I always love to give her the floor to share anything she would like to share to us. So Melly, if you would you like to close us out here with any thoughts or messages you want everybody to hear?
Well, wow, thank you. I appreciate that. I've been sitting here quietly listening, and the question that always as I watch the boys like fill the trucks up, even just on a regular trip, I'm like wondering, like, what's the number one thing people say, we didn't really need that. That's always rattles around in my head. But our profession is the what ifs, right? We got to be, that's the core of what we do, is like, what if this happens? What if that happens? So I think I'd rather have a truck full than a truck half full and your pants caught down. So I appreciate this workshop. It's been really eye-opening for me, the amount of work that goes into this. I appreciate the work of this committee. I think I'm so excited about this. Currently working on a strategic plan for our organization that I will be sharing with your respective district directors and executive directors and everybody on the national board, I think by the end of this week. So I look forward to sharing that with all of you. I'm ready to get to work. I said that when I was running, and I'm working on it. I'm actively really working on moving this thing forward in many ways and listening to all of you. So I encourage anybody at any time to reach out to me, email me, call me. I'm always I'm fully cognizant that I don't know everything, right? So I welcome feedback, good, bad, and different. So with that said, I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Spread the good word about this. Peeler, thank you for getting some CEUs, because we are, this is part of our education. This is deserving of CEUs, so I appreciate that getting done. Tim, once again, he's the man. Appreciate you being on here and sharing your wisdom to help take care of our student athletes, because that's what it's really all about. That's all I got for you guys and gentlemen and ladies, and have a great week and good luck with all of the rest of your seasons.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.